Okay, day 2 of Mishlei 1523. Simcha la'ish b'ma'aneh fiv v'davar bito matav. Okay, so we actually have a different translation now than we did when we did yesterday. There is joy or happiness, or I would also go with enjoyment. Probably is better than enjoyment, pleasure, right? Enjoyment. To a person in the response or the statement of his mouth. V'davar be'ito mato, and a statement or a word or matter in time, how good. Okay, so just one question really quickly on translation. I was just thinking about this on the way over here. So ma'aneh, we said, means either response or it means speech. Okay, so the question is, why would Shlomo HaMelech use such an ambiguous term? This is an old question. I think this is a good example to use for this. Why would he use such an ambiguous term? Like, if he meant speech, we have like a word for that, like bedibur piv or something like that, imre fiv, right?
Is there a different word which means response?
That's a good question. I feel like perhaps not. But here's the thing also, is that we see that he's not averse to coining terms, right?
That's true.
What was it?
What is it
like to be ona?
Yeah, right.
Well, that's mana, no?
Oh, that is that word.
Yeah, that's the same word. Yeah.
What's the connotation with the mana? Is that part of the question?
What was it?
Is that part of the question?
What's the connotation of ma'aneh and dibur? I mean, dibur has I would say a neutral denotation and neutral connotation, whereas ma'aneh, the denotation is if you take it as answer, then it means like in response to a question or in response to someone else.
So it's intentional.
Right, but I'm asking like okay, so yeah, that's a good first step, right?
I mean, the way you just explained it was dibur is more like you're just saying things.
Yeah.
That there's no intention on your words. But a response is like, no, there's an intentional.
No, okay, so to clarify the question here is that some of the Mefarshim we read say that this just means dibur and it's not a response, right? So that seems to be like just bad writing then.
According to them,
according to them, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going.
Yeah. So I think the answer is very simple. I think, which is that this is what we've talked about a lot, where he writes his mashalim in ways where they lend themselves to multiple levels. Okay, and this is not. I'm not saying this in a conspiracy theory type way. I think that you could take that too far. But if this is a standalone proverb, so then dibur is a totally reasonable explanation. But if this is paired with the previous one, which is about asking for and giving advice, so then response is a better thing, or if this is a derech nigle and this is talking about stam speech, then that's one thing. But if it's derech nister and it's talking about learning and giving answers to questions, so I think this is just like a good example of that like, yes, you could have said it in a way that would have conveyed one meaning, but that would lose the point. The point is that it should be able to be read in different ways, so just want to point that out. Okay, questions are, what scenario, if any, are we talking about here? Is this stam, or like we said, is this in the scenario that we've been talking about in the advice? What is ma'aneh piv? If it's a reply, then does it matter what it's a reply to or what kind of reply? What kind of simcha? How does the ma'aneh piv create simcha? What's the relationship between the two halves? That's a big one. Are they opposites? Is the davar in the second half related to the ma'aneh in the first? Are they synonymous? Something else? What's the relationship between the tov and the simcha? Given that simcha is an emotional reaction and ma tov sounds more like an objective evaluation, although it could also be a subjective thing. If so, what's the emotion or objective evaluation for each half, for each other half? Who's creating the davar b'ito? What does that mean? Who's creating the davar b'ito? Oh, meaning who's saying it?
Meaning it's davar b'ito ma tov, but who is?
Creating is just a weird word, right? Who is the source? I think I just copied down whatever someone said of the davar b'ito. What is the quality of b'ito? Is it davka timing, or is it circumstance? Is it whatever? What is meant by ma tov? How is the davar b'ito automatically tov? Is this true? To what extent? What are the parameters? Right? Is any ma'aneh piv or a specific kind? And if it's the latter, why stated so generally? So what? Sounds like it's just pointing out two phenomena. What's the practical application, and who's the intended audience? So our ideas from yesterday are, I think we are clear that this is pshat, I think, right? Is that that simcha is just referring to the emotional reaction, and people like to hear themselves talk. We tried analyzing that, and we realized that like it's probably multi-leveled. And I think on a very, very, very like okay, just to give a couple smatterings of this, I think on the most primal level, I've never been inside a baby's psyche, but I feel like once a baby realizes it can make noise and like elicit reactions from the external world, there is an inherent pleasure to that, like a self-affirming thing, So I feel like when we talk and we enjoy it, then it partakes of that. There's also the idea that that everyone thinks that they're intelligent, and so when you give advice, there's like an affirmation of, oh, I am, I'm smart. There is, you think that you're helping people, so it feels good about that. There's just, I mean, okay, there's whatever, a lot of things. Okay, so that's the happiness, and the point of the pasuk is if you just automatically reply, or you just, I don't know if this is confined to replying, or if you just talk without thinking, it'll bring you joy, but because it won't necessarily be good, or it might even be bad, it might undermine it. So, but if you wait and think and ask yourself, is this a good time or scenario to say this? So you get the pleasure of talking and you get the objective good and all the pleasure that comes from that. So it's just a much better investment to like stop and think, And I think also we didn't say this yesterday, but I think if you are the, okay, so backstory here. So when I was in, not all through in high school, but when I switched schools to Northwest Yeshiva High School in 11th grade, I was extremely shy and I barely talked like in public settings. And when I did talk, I talked because I had something to say. And so like I got this reputation of like being someone who like when I say something, like people listen. I'm sure people like that who like barely talk. And then when they talk, then it's like, oh, So like, I think you get that if the less you speak, then the more impactful your speech is, which can enhance all the qualities of it if it's good. No offense, but this is the rule that we used to say. This used to be the rule in percussion, which is percussion is effective in inverse proportion to how often it's used, Okay, good. Yeah. But now it's standard in certain genres of music that there's always percussion going, but in the olden days, yeah. Okay, so is that the idea? I think that's the idea, right? Okay, and then we gave some examples. Sean said with giving rebuke or guidance of any sort, then you could definitely undermine the good that you're causing if you do it at the wrong time, or not get the result that you want. And then Isaac just pointed out that Be'ito is the right circumstances, not just the right timing. Oh, I had an idea also. I was thinking about the Megillah. There's so many good instances of this in the Megillah, right? What do you think? What are the examples you think of at first?
The Mishlei, where they like setting it up
Was that for like speech?
for her, talking about for her requests.
Oh yeah, that Mishnah. I thought you meant the Mishnah in the beginning. I was like, I don't get it. Yeah, right. So Esther delaying and cultivating the circumstances at the second Mishnah to ask her request. Yeah. Charvona. That was the first one I thought of for some reason. It's like, I think because what I was saying yesterday, like Kairos of proper timing. Charvona was what's his actual role in the Megillah? Is it Abdei Melech, Sari HaMelech? He was a Sarisi, yeah, fine. So he's already like got some prominence or some clout in the court, right? So he's a known quantity. The thing he's saying is a known quantity, right? But it was saying it at that exact time that had the effect. I think he's already Mordechai, like making the case to Esther that day. If he hadn't done that, then that could have changed things. He had to impress the urgency upon her. And then I think
Haman.
Yeah, with Haman, right? That's the example of the opposite. Yeah, exactly, right. And also Haman. I feel like if Haman had, let's say, suggested to the king that he be honored, under a different set of circumstances, like then it seems, the king commanded people to bow down to him, so like he's clearly willing to grant Haman honor. So I think it's a good examples. Okay, so then Sean had the idea of there is a cathartic release in talking about your feelings, but if you do it at the wrong time, it could damage you. Example I was thinking of, this is a dumb thing. In high school, we had a talent show every year, and there was a girl who got up. This is like a high school talent show. I don't know if you've ever had high school talent shows. Girl who got up and gave this very, very emotional poetry and was like crying while she was talking, and she just got made fun of. Like it's like there is a time and a place for that, but a high school talent show in front of your peers is not the time to do that. Okay, so then we had Mitzu's David, I actually want to set aside. Well, actually, we'll read Mitzu's David. I don't want to work on him because I think Meiri is going to shed some light on him, but we'll reread him just to get him to refresh it. He says, Simcha, we didn't know exactly how to translate this. Kol ish yismach b'imrei fiv, ki yum tak lo atas nafsho. Every person will rejoice in the statements of his own mouth because his own advice will be sweet to him. Aval davar be'ito ma ma'od hu tov. But a statement in its time is very good. V'ratzalomar, meaning to say, Af im lo yihi atas nafsho bahaskel. I feel like there should be a comma there. Even if it's not his own advice with intelligence, af im hitzliach b'ha'etahi b'davar kiyotabo, and even if there's been success in this advice in similar cases, mikol malchum ein kol ha'itim shavos. Not all times are equal. Maybe the people who are the advisors will tell him that this is not the time to do this. So the confusion we had was, why is he melding these two ideas in a way that doesn't really seem to bring out a unique point in either one? It's just a confusing thing. But then we had Rabbeinu Yonah, which is that Rabbeinu Yonah added that it's specifically good statements or proven statements. And we said, what's the chiddush? So the havamina is that it's always a good time for truth. Kamashmalan, no, it's not. Truth is a type of communication. Truth is received emotionally and intellectually different ways by the people. So you have to, take that into consideration as well. You have an idea?
So I had an idea. It might be related to Rabbeinu Yonah. I was thinking that a lot of people sometimes when they speak, they make a statement, they want a response to validate them.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But that is kind of a very superficial. That's kind of you want to satisfy your
ego, right? Yeah.
But and it's fine, whatever. That's just human nature. But I think the second half of the pasuk is talking about where you can make a statement and you don't need the human validation. That statement is out there in the world, and in its own time, you'll see it play out.
That's interesting.
That was it. Yeah. And I for some reason, something about Rabbeinu was saying that the truth is out there. That's kind of that's kind of what I had.
Interesting. So you're saying that.
And I actually had a personal example, like through Chachma.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you have an idea through Chachma, and you just can't convey it to people because their perception is through not Chachma, and it's hard to have them see it. But over time, it'll just play itself out. It's
a true idea. It's funny how that's almost the opposite of the pshat, right? Because the pshat is saying you should time it properly because that's when it'll be received. And this idea is, if it's a good statement, then regardless of whether that time is good, that it will be perceived in its time. See, I mean, I think the support for what you're saying is davar be'ito, a thing in its time, right?
That's what I'm getting.
Right. Yeah. Right. So an example of that is I mean, I think there are a lot of examples like that in history of science, right? Of people who were ahead of their time, or science, or any area that's area of knowledge that's progressing, quote the Back to the Future line, I guess you're not ready for that, but your kids are gonna love it, right? Yeah.
So the chiddush of the pasuk is that don't care about what other people said. Don't really. There was the first half of the pasuk, not necessarily a good thing. The response is who needs response? That's just an emotional thing.
Are you looking for validation? No. I'm saying because I think you could take that and harm yourself also. In other words, I think if you're going to take this idea,
you need feedback.
No, you need feedback also. But I'm saying there is such a thing as even if what I'm going to say is true and future generations will appreciate it, it could kill me now. So you got to be smart, especially if you want to make more statements in the future. Right. Yeah. You don't want to deplatform yourself by saying the wrong thing. Yeah, Isaac.
Yeah. To try to fit what Ariel's saying in with the idea that we were developing.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it can be the right time to say something because the person's gonna later on think about it and accept it. Even if they're not gonna accept it right now. I actually had that recently.
The time bomb advice approach.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to use a less hostile muscle. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want an example?
Yeah. I recently I was talking to someone who was going through a hard time at work, and I was saying, give it a month and see if this is continuing to happen before he was like, should I be looking for other jobs? Should I be, I was like, this seems like a thing that is going to pass.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, it's been 3 weeks, and he's like, yeah, they like totally changed that. It's not a problem anymore.
Right.
And I think like I think him hearing it like at the time, and not just me saying it now, but
Yeah.
heard at the time, um, will help him have that mentality in the future.
Yeah. So I think that's actually a good trick to circumvent some of the non-timeliness of statements that are still valuable is if you say to the person, if you just say the advice, then if it's not the right time, then they're not going to hear it. But if you say, and again, I'm not saying this always works, but if you say, look, I'm going to give you some advice, you're not going to be able to hear it right now, but a couple years from now, if you have a situation like this, then you're going to look back and be like, oh, now I get what he was saying. If you articulate the fact, if you like bring into the discussion the timing and the inability to hear certain things in a certain time, then like that could have an effect to help facilitate what Isaac was talking about here. Okay, then the last one yesterday was the Ralbag, who we theorize it's simcha la'ish. There's a joy to, simcha la'ish b'mane piv. There is a joy in responding or speaking with the man, meaning a prominent person, but davar b'ito matov, but something in its time is good. So we said that he said that when you're speaking to someone prominent, you have to make sure to prepare ahead of time what you're going to say. So we said, isn't that obvious? The answer is no. People get flustered when they're speaking with someone who is prominent, and all reason goes out the window, and we see this happen with Rebbe. We see this happen with celebrities, I don't know if anyone saw the Chris Farley sketch, but yeah. Okay, so let's do, anyone have any new ideas of their own? If not, we'll do the Meiri. All right, so let's do the Meiri. Okay, so the Meiri connected this with the pasuk from last time, which was right. Hafer machshavos be'ein sod uvrov yotim takum. So plans are thwarted without counsel or without secret counsel, but in an abundance of advisors, they will be successful. They will prevail. Okay, fine. So I'm going to skip what he said before because he gave several interpretations, and I think he'll bring it. He'll tie it together if need be. So he says. Okay. Valzeh Amar Simcha la'ish b'manei pi v'davar b'ito matel. Klomar Simcha leno'et. I think it's a Simcha to the person who receives advice, the person who is advised. Kishehisig lema'anei piv. It's difficult to translate here. When lema sheshal b'fiv, when what he asked for is hisig, is attained. Okay, I think let's read it on. Kimane b'makom dibor. Mane means dibor. Kamo v'anisa ve'amarta. It's a good raya. He will, and you shall respond and say, right? But there's no response. You're initiating the declaration, right? V'ya'an Eov harishon. The first and Eov answered. Okay, all the other Eov responses are in response to like his friends talking, but the very first one, he's not answering. In fact, it says he was silent for 7 days. And then Vayan Eov, and then he answered. So it can't be that he's answering, he's speaking, okay? Which shows, by the way, that even if you see the term ana in the same context, it can mean different things in the same context, because there's like several Vayan Eovs in that area. O pirushu maybe this is, I'll read this anyway. This might be a different interpretation. O pirushu be'edus piv. It could mean with the testimony of his mouth. With verbal testimony, in that his mouth testifies to the matter that he has achieved. And this achievement is through an abundance of counsel. Okay, so first of all, pshat, what is he saying? A little difficult to read there. I'll say it again. Meaning to say that there's an enjoyment for the person who received advice when the speech of his mouth, meaning what he asked for, is achieved. Or it means with the testimony of his mouth in that which his mouth testified about the thing that he achieved, and that achievement is through the abundance of counsel.
I mean, davar b'ito is the advice that he got playing out.
I think so, right, yeah.
Well, he didn't explain davar b'ito yet. Like it looks like he's about to start it, no? Isn't this just
okay, yeah, correct. This is just for the first part, right. Oh yeah, so I guess we should do this then. Yeah, v'davar b'ito matov hora al tzorach ha'etza. This indicates the need for advice. Because sometimes sometimes a person will happen to succeed in something. And he'll think that if he does it again, he'll be successful in it, right? Classic mistake. And he'll miss the mark sometimes, because times are not all the same. It's possible for a person to succeed at one time, which will cause him to lose in another time. There are many things that is proper for a person to strive for in his youth that he should not do when he's in his old age. There's a lot of examples of this. And with new times and new circumstances come new advice. Therefore, it's proper for a person to take counsel with elders who have experienced many different experiences in their days. That's the machlokas about why you stand up for someone who's old, right? I think Rashi says it's because they've seen a lot of the niflaos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But then I think the Sefer Chinuch says it's because they've had a lot of wisdom that comes through life experience, so there's a certain accumulation of that you get from just experiencing lots of things. As it says, B'yishishim chachma, that wisdom is with the people who are old. Yeah. Okay. So now that's a complete picture here. Okay. So oops. So what is he saying here? I keep on clicking on the wrong thing. I need to do this. Yeah, David?
At least for the second half, I mean, it sounds like he's saying that the best way that giving something time and allowing for, when you're going to someone here for counsel, that's someone who's seen things through a lot of time. That's going to create the best advice, the best situation, the best thinking for any given thing. Right, so it's kind of like in a fine wine type of way of allowing the old person to see all these things, and then they're going to be the one that has the finest of all advice.
Okay, right. So practical advice, practically speaking, it's advising you to consult the aged, right? Yeah. But I think he's pointing out a mistake. I mean, he did point out a mistake, but the trick is to tie it into both psukim, right? I mean, I'll point out what he says the mistake is, right? Is he says that sometimes you'll succeed in something and you'll think that if you do it again, you'll succeed again. But not all times are the same. And therefore you should go to old people because they can help you filter out that feeling that success is intrinsically tied to this strategy, as opposed to success is highly dependent on the circumstances and the times. And it's a funny interpretation of simcha leish b'manei piv, right? Because it doesn't have to do with speaking according to him, right? It's really simcha leish following advice that worked once, right? But the manei piv is saying that oh, my advice worked, and so there's a certain enjoyment that you anticipate of duplicating your success, but you have to realize that if the times change, then you're not going to duplicate your success, and you have to take counsel with Yotim. Yeah.
Saying simcha leish b'manei piv was when he asks for advice and then he's granted the advice and the subject matter he was inquiring about.
I thought that's how I read it at first, but I feel like kishehisig le'manei piv, when he attains mashashal b'piv, what he asked for. Meaning, I think the thing he's asking for advice for, when he achieves success in that, I think is what that's what's the thrust I'm getting from the entire thing.
Then he gets simcha.
Then he gets simcha, yeah.
It's never be'ito, meaning only do it when it's proper. Only
Yeah.
follow the advice when it's proper.
Yeah, right. And then consulting Yoatim, which I don't know where he gets Davka old Yoatim from. I don't know if he's getting that from the previous pasuk or not, but I think that's where that's the practical message here. Yeah. Right. So the practical, just to summarize here, right, is this is Meiri's. He's going to do more ideas, obviously, but so Meiri's first idea is don't fall into the trap of thinking that if a plan worked once, it'll work again. Okay. The success of plans and the validity of advice is highly contingent on circumstances which are constantly changing. Okay. Therefore, you should consult people who have had a lot of experience, because they'll be able to see through, so they'll be able to sift out, the good aspects of good advice from the circumstantial factors that might make that advice bad in this case. Yeah. And that's the thing is, again, people love painting things in black and white. Like either this is a good strategy or it's a bad strategy, So these old people, again, it doesn't have to be old people. It's experienced people, right? It could be someone who has, if you're asking about teaching advice and you ask someone who's taught for 10 years, like they don't have to be old, but they've just seen lots and lots of cases. So like, they can help you realize like, yeah, that is good advice for XYZ reason. But if you try it here, it's clearly different circumstances. It's not going to work. Yeah. Yeah.
They seem to be putting a lot of emphasis on experience, but I mean, what about Chachma? I mean, like if you were to weigh experience versus Chachma, meaning.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Chachma I think this is talking about a type of Chachma that you get through experience. That you see many, many cases of this, and you develop not only particular ideas, but an intuition about how to weigh the factors.
Yeah, I know. I'm not discounting that experience as a type of chachma. I guess my question is like if someone were to understand this in the abstract, through chachma, and like let's say it's a second year teaching.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure through chachma you can deduce whether or not this strategy would work at this time versus that time, or that's impossible.
I wouldn't say it's impossible, but I would say that that it's not as effective as you might think in comparison to experience. I mean, again, I've said this before, but and Israeli is a different place now. I mean, I don't know, different good or different bad, but I went to Israeli graduate school for Jewish education and administration, and half of my graduate school experience was before I was in the classroom, and then half of it was after, and it was night and day. Like we learned all these strategies beforehand. And then once I was actually in the classroom, like it anchored my learning in real world experience. And it was so like, I saw things through eyes. I was in certain classes. I mean, I've told this story before, but like there was one class that was being taught by a psychologist. Okay. She was not an educator. She was a psychologist, and she certainly wasn't an educator of high school students. And everyone but me in the class, it was an introductory class that I skipped over to take something else. And so I was going back. So I think I was one of the only students who actually had classroom experience, and everyone else in the class was like, had not taught yet, and they're all like nodding to her advice. And like, and I was thinking to myself, like, if she ever tried this with teenagers, it just would not work. Like anyone who's had experience with teenagers could see this, and here we have a bunch of people who are lost in the ivory tower, like theoretics, and it's not grounded in particulars. And in contrast, you can have people who are experienced and they can't formulate things in abstract terms, but they know it in their bones. Like I'm thinking of the farmer who's like seen many winters, and like if you ask him, could you explain to me like the physics of the soil? And like all I know is that like you should plant corn like at this time because like I can't explain why, like there is an intuitive knowledge you can get through experience. Yeah. So I'm not saying Chachma doesn't help. I'm saying that you can have a lot of Chachma, but if it's not grounded in the experience, it won't work. And therefore, if you have to choose between abstract Chachma without experience and experience without abstract Chachma, I think the second will generally be more reliable.
The
experience without abstract Chachma, yeah, generally.
In what framework?
In all frameworks that involve practical applications of things. Yeah. I think I don't know. I can't prove that. I just rely on what I experienced, but yeah. Okay, let's go on to the next Meiri here. So we read this last time because he goes into the Derech Nister, but then he's going to go back to the Derech Nigla later. Why is the touch screen not working? Okay, so hold on. Oh man, hold on just 1 second here. Hide. Okay. Where is it? Derech Nister, right? With Derech Nister, Yiforosh Sod al Inyan Harishon. So now he's going back to the previous pasuk of how to start off. Hafir machshavos be'ein sod, right? So sod is the inyan rishon, which is a secret idea, an esoteric idea. We read this last time again. It's warning the chacham not to break, to like to cross boundaries for the intended shelo yaharos hamechuvan. Let me just see how the machshavos. Besibas galos sodos haTorah. In other words, you shouldn't reveal secrets to people who are not roy for it. Because that's gonna breach and thwart the intended machshava. But you should I don't know what chashivus is. Chashivus is using b'chashivus hachachamim v'hamadasam inyane haTorah al moshav kinam haroy lahem yiskayim hamechuvan. But in other words, you should rely on the chachamim and their, I guess I'm paraphrasing here, but their sense of when and how the sodos should be revealed. I think that's the thing here. In other words, you should check yourself when you're tempted to reveal a sod and say, no, I have to like take counsel with the chachamim. That's the second half of the pasuk, which he's not talking out, and look to them for guidance here. Okay. Yeah.
Is that from maybe like Yotzim meaning it's like Ra?
I think so. Yeah. Prominence of Yotzim. Yeah. Yeah. Not abundance or yeah. Okay. The here. So I think we did not read this last time. So he's pointing out Sheish Sodo Shein Roy Lagalosam Lashum Adam Ba'olam. No, we did read this. Af l'navon min hanavonim sheb'navonim. There are certain secret ideas that are not proper to reveal to anyone, even to the most understanding people. Ela shehachacham lefi ma sheyagia b'hatzlachas limudo yizbonin bahem mida'ato ad sheyasigim. But the chacham who's attained that knowledge in his own mind should contemplate them until he understands them. Right. So that an example of this would be in Masim Merkava, right? Where you're if you have Masim Merkava, then you're not even allowed to tell it to someone who's worthy to receive it. You have to hint it to them and that they have to figure it out on their own. And the Rambam says the reason why in the Pirush Mishnayos is because if you put it into words, that will distort it. And so any attempt to explain it is gonna actually harm them. So manepiv here is he's saying what you come chidushim in your own mind. Which is the end of a machshava, and that which is not proper to attain through someone else's influence. So in other words, the emphasis is on the vav. Simcha lish b'mane piv. It's your ideas you should have simcha in because you can't get it from someone else. V'hodio shiasigenu im yishmor asiyas hadavarim be'itam. That's interesting. So he's telling you that you'll get these ideas if you guard the doing of things in their time, and you guard against breaking through, like skipping steps, and that which comes from that. Have you ever heard that phrase? It's a big controversy what the word higayon means here.
Logic.
Yeah, so yeah, the higayon in modern is logic. Let's actually look at the Meiri I bet the Meiri would say 88. Oh no, wait. 89. Oh, Brachos 28b. Yeah, higayon. Some say it means mikra. It means Tanakh. I think Rashi says it means Tanakh. Like, don't let your kids study too much Tanakh, which is a funny statement. Some people say it means Greek philosophy, or whatever the corollary is nowadays. Postmodernism. No, I'm just kidding. Higayon. Mina higayon, and let's look at the Meiri. Higayon. So he says, "Sarich adam lihizar b'chavod chavirav l'gadol espanav l'talmud Torah l'chancham dusam shelo yiftor pasuk kitzuraso b'chol davar sheyipshuto mochiach eze tzad shel kfira." Okay, good advice. He says you got to be careful. I don't know why he says b'chavod chavirav in honoring your peers and raising your children for Talmud Torah and educating them from their youth, to not interpret a pasuk literally in any matter where the surface meaning implies any aspect of kfira. Yeah, too much. Yeah, right. Behu shenemar kan mena'u b'nechem min higayon. This is what it means. Prevent your kids from, withhold your children from Tanakh. So higayon. Mi pisron hapasuk kamoshu nikra. Just interpreting pasuk literally. So from literal literal Tanakh, fundamentalist Tanakh. Okay, let's explain the other part of the thing. Yeah. So I don't know if he's going to be consistent what he's saying here. Let's see. Oh, he doesn't explain. It's fine because harisa usually implies kfira, but usually it's kfira when you go too deep, too fast. In the memra, he's seeing like the opposite, where you don't go deep enough, at the right point. Yeah. Yeah. He might have a different interpretation here. I'm not sure. It says in the footnote, Ubir Rabbeinu Horazol Himani mi Pirush al derech hapshat she'alu lahavi l'kfira. Re'e gam Pirush al-Sanhedrin Tzadi Bab Aleph. Okay, fine. V'chein Amr b'Maseches Chagiga Tav Igmarcha Ma'aseh Merkava v'Amr le Akati lo Kashai. So this is where one guy says, "Come and I'll teach you Ma'aseh Merkava." Okay, just say no to people who are offering you Ma'aseh Merkava. He says, "Akati lo Kashai," which I think means I forgot the literal meaning of Kashai, but it means basically I'm not worthy or I'm not ready yet. So you got to know your level. These are things that are very wondrous to those who are very prominent to those who find favor. Okay, is he adding anything, or is this just a continuation of what you were saying before? And we got to know your level, right? Classic Meiri message. But do we get anything different from here? I mean, it seems connected to his previous idea, but the previous idea was about teaching others. This is more about yourself, of not being too eager to get the ideas that even are objectively good. See, this is another thing also, is kind of an Derech Nisr expansion on Sean's Havmin for Rabbeinu Yonah, which is Ma'aseh Merkava is truth. But that does not mean that it's good. It could be harmful for you in most cases. Okay, let's do the next Meiri. There's still more. V'yesh b'nigla, he goes back to the nigla. There's other insights in the nigla. Amar shebima'ane piv adam kishumane rach v'dibur arev umatok brios. When you speak gently and sweetly, or pleasantly and sweetly to people, yasig simcha v'avas habrios, you will achieve simcha and love of people. Meaning people will love you, I think, and people will be happy. And nevertheless, it says davar b'ito matov ki lifamim tzarich shiachriach adam atmo af b'chutz mitivo. Sometimes you'll need to compel a person, even outside of his nature, l'shanos b'tchunas hadibor, and change the quality of your speech. Pa'am derech kas, sometimes you'll need to speak angrily. Pa'am derech pitui, sometimes you need to speak seductively. No, I think it means like ingratiating, like speaking to their emotions. What do you say?
Encouraging?
Maybe encouraging. I think it has a little bit more of a manipulative connotation here, like Machiavellian, sometimes you need to speak in an overjoyous way. Lashon Havai is like hyperbolically, I'm so happy to see you. Yeah, no, but you got to be careful, like the Rambam says about not being using Gnevas Das, right? Yeah, right. Yeah. Karmam Zal in Hakas, like Chazal say about Kas, Lemirmi Imta inchi besehu da'avad. Okay, I don't know the literal translation, but I think it means to instill fear. I do know the literal translation. To instill fear in the people of his household is what he was doing. I think I know that from the Rambam in Hilchos Deos, when he says you can act angry in order to instill fear in the members of your household. So that must be the Aramaic for that. Yeah, like for disciplinary purposes. V'derech pitui v'sifsech lakos. Oh, he is advocating pitui and sifsech lakos, smooth talking, right? Mutter l'shanos b'divrei shalom, right? So it's mutter to deviate from the truth in matters of peace. V'divrei havai, and hyperbolic speech. Ki havu chalshei rabbanan migirsa havu amri mila dibitichusa. So this is not exaggeration. He says when the rabbanan were weary from their learning, then they would say a joke, right? So I don't know how he's learning havai. I think havai means silly here, right? Like using not serious speech, right? Yeah. So what's his idea here? So now he's not connecting it to the, I don't think he's connecting it to the Yotim, right? So that's saying that if you accustom yourself to speak gently and sweetly with people, you'll get simcha, meaning that people will like you and people will be generally good.
Then you'll bring them simcha?
Well, he's saying you'll bring them simcha, but I think yasig simcha means he will attain simcha and avas brios, and he will attain people's love.
Meaning they're gonna love him.
They're gonna love him. Yeah. Meaning I think it implies he will bring them simcha, but I think the pasuk is saying there is simcha for the person who speaks gently. And by the way, he is alluding to, I think Mane Piv is Mane Rach Yashiv Chema, right? The earlier pasuk in Monday night's parak. No, our parak, 15:1, I think. Yeah. So I think what's the idea here? I think what he's saying is that, there are people who are very, very gentle in speaking, but like everything, there's no such thing as an intrinsically good midah, and there's a time for everything, right? So like, if you're a gentle, sweet talking person, there are times when you have to change your nature and speak in a harsh manner. And there are people who can't do that. Like, you'll find people who are very, very gentle in their speech, and people generally like them. And then when it comes time where they have to discipline someone harshly, they won't be able to do it, So you're going to have to go against your nature in order to be able to do that, because otherwise you're not going to get the proper results, or you're going to miss out on opportunities to say what actually needs to be heard, Okay, I think that's a good idea there, right? So that's the davar b'ito is even though you can get these good results from your speech, you have to be sensitive to the times. Okay, next, v'yesh lefarish al limud. That goes back to limud. Ratzlamer al harav hamelamed, on the rav who teaches. V'etzlim b'mane fiv lashon shefa. So ma'ane piv means influence, or pouring out, bestowing your chachma. Ader ha'artz ta'ane es dagan. Like we all know, the pasuk says the earth will answer the wheat. Okay, I don't know. V'hakesav yanesikol. Money will answer everything. Will influence everything. V'chein l'das ksas v'ha'elokim ya'anenu b'kol. Whoa. Speaking of not getting clear interpretations of psukim, I'm not going to attempt to explain that. Shaya ozro umashpio b'kol she'ilam alikein lo hayakol nishma. Never mind. So there is a joy in people who teach and people who learn from them. When their speech is influenced to speak their words precisely without confusion. In other words, I think he means if you're teaching, there's a certain simcha that comes from saying something clearly, or the recipients of your learning will get a certain simcha from the clarity, okay, when it's not confused. Because this is one of the, I never know how to translate taxis. Sometimes it's protocol, but it means like proper qualities of dibur in teaching and in expounding. That your speech should be appropriate to the time and the circumstance. Like it says, you should ask on topic and answer according to the halacha. So in the good Gemaras, it says not ki-inyan, but bit-inyan. In the subject matter appropriate to that time. Hilchos Pesach Pesach, Hilchos Aseres B'Atzeres V'kulei. And it's mentioning the most important quality in your speech. Kimane piv kolel seder hadavarim umahusam be'ikusam, because mane piv includes the order of your statements and their essence and their quality. Arevus hadibur hamasapram v'hamagidam, and the sweetness of your speech in telling them. V'davar b'ito kolel hazman v'ha'es v'makom. So in other words, all your qualities of speech have to be proper. Okay. Is that a new idea? I mean, it just seems to say that, like, if you're teaching, you should make sure that you work on all the qualities of your speech, not just the ideas themselves, but the clarity, the order, all this other stuff. All right, let's finish it off just to get another derech nister. I've never seen him go back and forth before. Ufi derech nister lichlol b'davar b'ito inyan ha'itim asher b'sefer koheles. My intuition was right. This is talking to the aces and koheles. But we're going on for too long. Is he saying that ironically, like davar b'ito matov? Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting. Yeah. It's interesting how he joined it with the previous pasuk first instead of giving the pshat here. Yeah. All right. So we got a lot of ideas out of this. I think the main thing is just, I think the main idea that ties everything together is do not attach intrinsic qualities of goodness to your speech, right? That it depends on the person, the time, the content, the tone, like all of these things should change. So anytime you feel like this kind of statement is intrinsically good, you got to question that and anchor yourself in the particulars of the situation. Same thing with advice, right? There's no such thing as inherently good advice. It's always localized to the cases.
Why would people think it's not localized to these cases?
I think because people want ease and they don't want to think. And one of the temptations of any advice is I don't have to think, I could just apply, you know? Yeah. Yeah. Also, it's confusing to think about the particulars, you know? Easier to just like not think. Yeah. Okay. Good ideas. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.